Paul Haynes from 2018. Lou Bear, 2019. Reverend Fred Miller, 2022. Would you please join me in a moment of silence for our 2021 deceased Grand Marshal, U.S. Marine Corporal Gene Litton. To introduce this year's Grand Marshal, please welcome Dennis Morrell, Commander of Eastport American Legion, Post 1545.
Thank you, Jimmy. Wow, what a crowd. Oh, this is absolutely awesome. You people out here are very respectful of your veterans, and we deeply appreciate it. And if anybody needs somebody to bug somebody in their life, this is the person you have to pick right here. Okay? She's relentless, but she's a doll. Give her a hand. She does so much here. Thank you. Well, I best to get on with the show. So, my name is Dennis Morrell. I am the commander of the American Legion in Eastport, and I had the privilege to serve with a bunch of great people. The Brotherhood has been alive and well since the early parts of the Civil War and before, and it's still alive. So I would like to introduce to you and tell you a little quick story about the Grand Marshal today. Charlie War was the past commander of the American Legion, and he's also the adjutant for as many years as I can remember. And he was a mentor when I came into the post 15 years ago, and he coerced me into being post commander 15 years ago. So I'm still here. So it's with great honor and great privilege I did this Air Force veteran, Marshal Charlie War.
Quite a while of Eastport, and I'm a member quite a while also. And I'm also a veteran of the Air Force. I joined before Korea started. So I was trained, and people that also were trained at that time. So when Korea started, they were available for whatever the mission was. It so happened for 3 months, all the graduates of the mechanic school went to Okinawa. And Okinawa was where they had World War II aircraft that could be used as air-to-ground weapons. What happened is that when North Korea invaded South Korea, they moved fast, and the first call that went out was for air-to-ground air help. That meant all the guys that were in Okinawa that were mechanics, they had sent up 25 P-38s and 25 B-26s. They dropped them off in the middle of Korea with no interpreters and they had no idea where they were, and they had no weapons. And they were overrun, about 70 of them, with my schoolmates. And to this day, nobody knows what happened to them. So, but that was my, I ended up in air transport command. I lucked out because that command, they weren't assigned to Okinawa. But I later found out about how Korea started. Joe Stalin was very involved. When they had the defense of Moscow, call for help from everybody out in the east. The east included Korea. And at the end of, when they pushed the Nazis one of the officers to be in charge and send them all back with about 1,000 Russians to build up their army and train them, and that's what he did. And then he called, the president at the time was Harry Truman, and he said, I got a crew on the 38th parallel, and we're going to meet you. You send the crew over here, and we're going to negotiate where the boundary is going to be. Well, the Americans got over there about 2 weeks later. The negotiations, they ended up on the 38th parallel, was the defining factor of Korea. So that's when, and then 5 years later, he approved the army going into South Korea and taking it over. By the way, the North Korea is a big property, and South Korea was a minor part of the Korea area. And they took no prisoners, and then MacArthur had a beautiful invasion, and he cut off everybody. They were already pushed down to Busan, which is down south. And the invasion, they cut off everybody, and then were fighting everybody and he was firing. The Marines had a very good invasion, and the Navy cooperated, and everybody did good. And then MacArthur he organized that, and they were fighting all the way up to the boundary and beyond. They let the Marines go too far. He was advised not to send any Americans, just send the Korean army, but he didn't, and the Marines got up to Yalu, and the Americans, they had B-29s in Okinawa, and they were bombing. But guess what? The Russians had MiG-15s, and they knocked down quite a few B-29s. So they had Russian pilots. But then they captured a lot of Americans, and they put them on trains. And guess what? The trains went into Russia. You only found out later. And I heard from a Greek that was working in Eastern Russia, seen the trains and knew that they were Americans. And all of them went to the Gulag. So that meant the end of them. And he was so bad, the Germans had captured about a million Russians when they first invaded. In 1945, they sent them all back to Russia. Guess what the welcome was? Officers got shot on the spot, and all the enlisted men had to go to Gulag. And that shows you communism, you don't want it in your area, you don't want to have the country. And Hitler was not the communist, the next level. But anyway, he showed his cooperation with everybody by when he got a news that 100,000 Germans were killed in Moscow and 140,000 were wounded and they were captured. All you can think about is, how come the commander didn't shoot himself? That's the intelligence. So, if you hear anything great about communism or socialism, tell them to forget it. And also to the people with the Chamber of Commerce. They did an excellent job, and I recommend them if anybody else has a parade.
Thank you. Give a big round of applause for Charlie.